Hi there, working homeschool mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And on today's episode of the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms, I talked to Teresa Whitrick from Capturing the Charmed Life, and it was a delightful chat. We speak about so many interesting topics related to homeschooling, such as deschooling and self-care, and we even spoke about homesteading and goats. The thing that I took away from the episode is that we have to work on ourselves as homeschool moms, as working homeschool moms, because homeschooling is not going to last forever and we are going to have a life on the other side of homeschooling. And it's important to concentrate on ourselves as well during this period instead of giving out everything that we have to every other part of our lives. I think this is such an important point. But before we get to the episode, I'd be ever so grateful if you could rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. It just means that more working homeschool moms can find it. And in that way, we can build this beautiful, strong community together. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome to the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms. This is Charlotte Jones. I'm a homeschool coach and homeschooling mom of twin boys. I know it can feel really overwhelming to keep all the balls in the air all the time. So each week I chat about tips and strategies for being a happy and thriving working homeschool mom that you can implement in your life too. I also speak to awesome and inspiring women who manage to juggle homeschooling and work successfully and find out what their secrets are. Be sure to check out my time audit and mindset challenge in the show notes and sign up to my newsletter for lots of cool freebies. And if you ever need to chat, please book in a session with me. I'm so excited for you to be here and I hope you'll get so much value out of this episode. So let's get started. Are you looking for a new math curriculum? Well, I'm thrilled to introduce our favorite math curriculum to you. CTC Math specializes in providing online video tutorials that take a multi-sensory approach to learning. Favorably reviewed in Kathy Duffy's 102 Top Picks and the Old Schoolhouse Crew review, the lessons are short and concise to help your children break down concepts and appreciate math in a whole new way. The lessons are taught the traditional way and not to a test. Each one of the video tutorials is taught by an internationally acclaimed teacher, Pat Murray, who is renowned for teaching math concepts in a simple, easy to understand way and in only a few minutes at a time. Using a multi-sensory approach means having the combination of effective graphics and animation synchronized with the voice of a friendly teacher together with a practical assessment. This three-pronged attack makes learning so much easier and more effective. Even students who struggled with math are getting fantastic results, and ones who were doing okay before are now doing brilliantly. Visit ctcmath.com today to start your free trial. CTC Maths is generously offering my listeners an amazing special. Go to www.ctcmath.com/MLH to get a half-price discount plus a bonus 6 months for free. That's ctcmath.com/MLH. Today I'm going to be talking to Teresa Whitrick from capturingthecharmedlife.com. Teresa helps homeschool moms shed what's not working so that they can show up in their homeschools and lives authentically, purposefully, and confidently. Teresa has been a homeschool mama to 4 kids, now aged 14 to 21. Her writing forays turned into life coaching to serve the homeschool community. She offers virtual retreats and group and personal coaching on deschooling, self-compassion, boundary building, and reimagining our homeschool lives. Teresa hosts a podcast and creates a community for homeschool moms who want to show up on purpose in their lives. Welcome to the show, Teresa. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today.
Thanks for having me, and it is such a delight to hang out with you.
Before we get into our chat today, I'd also like to know, why did you come up with the name Capturing the Charmed Life? That's a really, really lovely name for your website.
Well, that's because in the first few months of homeschooling, I needed to go away to have a little breathing space. And so every Wednesday night, I would go write at a Starbucks locally and get my, pumpkin spice latte and scone. And I would sit there and write. And within months, I decided to create a website. And really, that is a statement of declaration, what I wanted for my life. Capturing the Charmed Life. So I have since wanted to change that name at times because I know that it sounds like this unrealistic utopia, which I think it is if you expect that it'll always stay that way. However, I think at default, that's what we want. We want to capture all the charms of our homeschool lives.
I love that. I think it's a beautiful name. And I think also just there's also the kind of idea that you set the intention that that's what you want your life to be, and then it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy, I think, as well.
Yeah, and I always share with homeschool moms, let's turn our homeschool challenges into our homeschool charms. So, when I once wanted to let go of the name, I realized, no, actually, I can embrace both growth and have these high expectations of my life.
Absolutely. I love that. And maybe you can tell the listeners how you've managed to juggle homeschooling your four kids and working at the same time. What are some tips that you could give them?
Well, it was a gradual transition for me. So I haven't always worked and homeschooled. And though I have four kids, two of them are grown, one is about to graduate, and my youngest is almost or is 14 and a half. So I've gradually moved into working at home. I didn't always do that. What I did always do is create a space for me to take a breather. So that would mean maybe tapping on an iPad for Pinterest for 15 minutes after lunch. I'd put my box of Oreo cookies underneath that chair and I would have the door closed and just as many minutes as I could get, which was not more than 15 minutes ever. And I would just sit and be quiet. But I also really always love to write. That's why, the website started not long after I started homeschooling. And so I would write and it was very nourishing for my soul. Gradually, I moved into, and I don't even remember the impetus for it, me thinking, I'm going to write a book about how to look after the homeschool mom, and like how we can look after ourselves, because that is definitely my story. And then I just wrote a book and I moved into coaching naturally. I always was coaching, but then I moved into it intentionally and started a podcast and the whole thing. And it kind of gradually moved in that direction. And as time has gone by, I've set boundaries with kids when they know that I'm not available at certain times, but I'm a lot more present with them when I am with them.
So now maybe we can chat a little bit about the coaching that you do, because I think it's really, really super, super interesting. And I think it's going to be so helpful for the listeners as well. So how could homeschool parents not show up authentically, confidently, and purposefully? What does that look like, would you say?
Hmm. Yeah. So I want to say in a nutshell, but this won't be a nutshell answer. There's many ways that we could not do that. We could be trying to create a school at home or take from our conventionally educated culture all sorts of ideas about what an education should be as home educators and really do things because it serves the bigger narrative of what the world thinks an education is. So, not very authentic, not very focused on what our children might need or our experience or values in education. I think that why I discuss boundaries or why I go toward a discussion on boundaries, internal and external boundaries, is that we as people or as individuals have to grow in development or we have to grow in identity formation. Maybe that's a big word, but you becoming more you, even as you're homeschooling, you're not always going to homeschool. One day you're going to live outside of that homeschool world and be who you were always meant to be on this planet. So I say, why not do that right now? But I also think that we do a lot of the things that we do in our lives because we're trying to serve the ideas of what other people think we should be doing. So that could be many different things. But even if it's choosing a philosophy based on what other people around you are doing in your homeschool, or that could be how you're choosing to engage in your relationships, which might not have anything to do with homeschooling. So building boundaries is a way to develop you and become more you. And to me, that's very much a discussion of authenticity. And when it comes to purpose, that one, I think there's something about the homeschool life. We're so focused on our kids and what they need, and that's a beautiful thing. We miss out on the fact that we also have needs, and so we need to address what we have as needs. But we also, as time goes by, learn that kids are learning no matter what. They do not need, very traditional approaches. You can use them, but they don't have to have them to learn. They're always learning. And because they're always learning, we grow to understand, oh, wow, we can live outside the conventional educational box. We're going to encourage them to learn in ways that might not look so typical to the system. But then we look at them and say, oh, look, they're living their lives on purpose. They're embracing their life fully and really coming into themselves. Maybe I should be too. So I think we can create a purposeful life, not just for our kids, but for us as well.
That's such an interesting point, because I guess when you're in the middle of homeschooling, it feels like it will never end.
Yeah,
It feels like a very long journey, but it's so true. Obviously, it's the perfect time, as we were saying before, because during homeschooling, you face a lot of your own baggage, you face a lot of the things that trigger you. So it's a good opportunity to kind of grow alongside your kids as well.
that is for sure. And it does feel like it's a long time. I remember thinking in my first year of parenting, because I had a colicky baby who didn't want to be put down. And I love her. And she's so sweet. She was so, I mean, she still is so beautiful, but she was such a sweet baby and yet challenging. And I didn't know how to soothe her. And so I was always focused on how do I address her needs? And I can't address her needs. And it just isn't working smoothly. I thought that first year was never going to end and I was going to lose my mind because I was not sleeping for 10 months or maybe 10 and a half months. I wasn't fully sleeping. And it really did feel like a very long time, even until, so I've had four kids and spaced out about every 2, 3, almost 3.5 years apart. And so I had four kids. By the time my youngest was about 6, that's when I started to feel like, okay, I can take a breath, and things began to feel more fluid and less intense. And that part of the journey shifted where it felt like, ooh, this is a really long day or really long season. And then it sped up a bit and it keeps speeding up as I go.
Yes, it's so true. Like they say, the days are long, but the years are short. And I
Man,
feel that because I can't believe my kids are almost 12. I
yeah.
still so remember that, yeah, because my kids were also incredibly colicky and it was, oh, it was so hard in the
So
beginning. And there
hard.
were two of them and they were so hungry and demanding. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yes,
But now,
absolutely.
yeah, now they're almost 12. It's so crazy.
Hmm.
So, why have you chosen the course or coaching options that you've created for homeschool moms?
Because someone asked me, how can you serve the homeschool mom community? And then I looked at the things that I've learned that helped me, and that's why. These are areas. There's actually a couple other areas that I haven't shared fully with the world or released to the world, but there's different areas that I've learned a lot in over the course of 2 decades, maybe more than 2 decades.
And what would you say is the most repeated interview question that you get?
Is self-care selfish?
That's a good one. Wow.
I have instant reaction, the same kind of reaction that most of us have when people ask, what about socialization? I'm like, no, self care is yours, girlfriend. You are supposed to accept that you're a human being and you're not a godlike figure in your family life that has no needs. You're a human being, even though you absolutely have these things that you need to do to nurture and guide and lead and do many, many things for your family. But you have needs too because you're a human. So self care is not selfish.
Yes, it's so very true. And it can be hard, I think, like you said at the beginning, because they
Mhm.
often women feel guilty to take even a little bit of time for themselves because we're so used to just giving and giving and giving. So what advice would you give them to include more self-care or to even start practicing self-care?
So I would go first to asking why not? Why aren't you doing self-care? Or why are you feeling guilty? What's underneath that? And what might be your answer might not be someone else's answer. Usually the reason that I'm engaging someone in coaching is not usually the reason that they need to be engaging discussions on unraveling something or walking towards their goal. It's not usually the first thing that they bring to the table. But I would actually not so much give them advice or tell them what to do as much as I would say, why not? What's keeping you from it?
So I suppose you have to kind of uncover the blocks and work on those first, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it could be easy for me to say something like, and this is very much not out of my playbook, but you should go once a month to get your manicure as I look at my hands and say, this is very funny that that's what I brought up. It's not what I do. I have goats and I have chickens and I live a very rural life and I write all the time. So having fake nails on my fingertips wouldn't feel right when I'm using the keyboard or writing all the time. But self-care is very different for different people. But I want to look at, tell me what it is. What's the reason that you're feeling the guilt? I'm just using your example, but asking, okay, what is the thing that's keeping you from feeling like you can address what your needs are?
I think that's such an important point as well, is in so many spheres of life, is comparing yourself to other people and saying, okay, so even though I don't like manicures, I should be having manicures because that's what people do for self-care. And I think the same goes for homeschooling as well. This person is doing this, using this particular curriculum. It doesn't really suit us, but maybe, we need to do this curriculum because they're doing it. How do you think people can overcome the comparison game? Because it can be very easy to fall into it and maybe quite difficult to get out of it.
Yep, for sure. And again, that is for me, it's not about what we would do or what we would put into practice, but I would go into so what about the way that you do things do you feel good about? Or let me say that differently and with better grammar. What is it that defines you? Who are you? What do you value? What's important to you? What are you good at? Looking at all the things that are you and focusing on more, what's your purpose? Like, why are you here on this planet? What's your specific reason for being with your kids? Or why are you choosing this? How does it serve the bigger purpose? Looking at purpose type questions to get clear what you need instead of like, what's your reason for looking out there and asking yourself, how can I be what the other people are? How can I align my daily activities with what I see on Instagram or in my homeschool co-op? Like, what's the reason you're doing that in the first place? So for me, that one hasn't been my default setting, is comparing myself. But what my default setting is to ask other people, how do you define me? And I'll figure out who I am based on what you think I should be. That's more of my default setting. So then I ask myself, why? Why does it matter what other people think?
Hmm.
And so going down that rabbit hole of, okay, what's the block, or what's the reason that you're focusing in that direction? Why don't you see yourself as the most valuable you that there is?
Yes, that's an amazing point. Yes, absolutely. And I think also just remembering your why it's also something that I always
Mm-hmm.
recommend, especially when times are tough, because homeschooling can be tough. Being a working homeschool mom can be tough. So remembering your
Mm-hmm.
authentic why can really help so
Yes.
much to motivate you in during those tough days, which we all have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Purpose again. Know your why.
Yes, exactly. And I see that on your podcast episodes that you do use kind of non-homeschool books. I see that you have a book club as well that includes non-homeschool books. What is the reason why you use books that are not necessarily specifically for homeschoolers?
Yeah, because I really think that you as a person need to develop beyond just your homeschool philosophy, your curriculum, your routines. You are so much more than really this phase of your life. And even though this phase of your life is filled with the coolest memories, you are going to learn so much. Like, you will learn so much. Maybe the kids will too, but you'll get the best education for sure. And so this period of your life is beautiful. You learn so many things. And there's so many things that inform how we're seeing our family. It's mindset again, it's looking at your family and saying, okay, yeah, I haven't had an experience of twins. I know my sister has, but having an experience of twins, that's a unique experience. You're looking at your children at different ages and stages, and you say, why is one so different than another? Or why are they not listening to me? Or why don't they care about this particular topic? Or how do I get them to, you fill in the blank? When we learn about how we learn, or we learn about how we have anxieties around certain things, or we learn strategies or tools to help us address our big emotions, all those things help us or help to inform how we're showing up in our homeschool.
Absolutely. And I think from what I've gathered, I see that a lot of your books are mindset books and things like that. And I think just using or having a growth mindset or just being open to opening your mind, I think it is only an advantage in your homeschool.
Yeah, and I love it. There's always that too. I just love reading those stuff, those things. So I love doing it with other homeschool parents.
Yes, and it's so great because I think mindset is such an important part of homeschooling, especially when you start out, because you really have to get your mindset straight before you start, I think. And I know you also talk about deschooling, which is something that I talk about a lot. Maybe you can just chat a little bit about deschooling and why you think it's important in a homeschool.
At core, I would say this. There's always three questions I ask homeschool moms when we have a initial chat, and it is it working for you? is how you're doing your life, your homeschool. Is it working for you? Is it working for your kids? And what do you think an education is anyway? And a lot of our notion around education and why we do what we're doing in our homes is because we've got this preconceived notion of education through the eyes of whatever we were experiencing before. And what we don't always take into consideration is our perspective on what that education was, or our, the benefits or the disadvantages of that education time in our lives, or that formal educational time, because we're always learning, but that has informed how we want to do things in our homes. And sometimes, just like we chatted on my podcast, that you can't create an 8 to 3 homeschool. You can. We've done it. I've done it. And then I wanted to stop homeschooling. You can do that, but it's not the most satisfying approach. And it turns out it's an awful lot of effort. I'll share this one story. I was expecting my oldest to do a 3-point essay. I don't remember how old she was, but she was probably unusually young, because I always started things really young, and we're just naturally academic by nature anyways, my husband and I. And so then I gave her this 3-point essay. She didn't want to do it. And it was just like pulling teeth. It definitely caused conflict between her and I. And when she finally finished some work towards that 3-point essay, she went upstairs and she happily hung out in her room writing a story. And I was like, wow, here I'm trying to force feed something that if I would just see how writing and communication can develop through her natural focus or energy, then I would be able to harness her interest in a way that would really serve her, or frankly, it would be easier to teach her even, and it's certainly easier for her to absorb things. And I could let go that notion that it had to happen in a certain way. So to me, that's just one element of deschooling. I think there are many different things we can deschool from.
Absolutely. I love that. And I believe that somebody is pregnant in your home. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Yes, that would be my Nubian goat. So that would not be me. We live on a homestead in Western Canada, and we are just this year breeding our first Nubian goat, and she's expecting to have a baby in the end of June.
Goats usually have twins, don't they?
Not the first time around, not typically.
Oh, not the first time around. Okay.
Yes, second time it could be twins, third time could be triplets. Oh, to be a goat.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. So what exactly is a Nubian goat specifically?
It's a certain kind of breed, but it's really cute. It has big floppy ears, and it just the sweetest goat. We have alpines as well, and they are, I wouldn't define as sweet. They're pretty rough. But the Nubian is named Poppy, and she's just the sweetest thing, with really lovely milk for cheese, maybe soap if we have enough.
Oh, lovely. So sweet. I adore goats. They are so, so sweet.
Yes, unless you like your shrubs.
Yes, because they are quite. It's so funny. I was having a conversation with somebody, I think on Friday, about goats, and they were saying they are lovely, but they are quite challenging as well to raise.
They really are. I do marvel that I've been drawn to certain kinds of animals. It probably reveals that I am as stubborn as the animals to which I care for.
And are they quite good at getting out? Because she was saying that her goat is quite, the billy goat is quite clever at escaping.
Very much so.
Hmm.
Also, my large guardian dog. Yes.
Mhm. But I think it's lovely to be on a homestead. It's also definitely a dream that I have. And then what about the chickens as well? Having chickens must be so fun.
I was so excited the first time I went to get pullets, so like baby day old baby chicks, and I think I was just as excited as having my own baby. And I mean, I spent years researching, and what I should have researched was which dog breed I should get, because I got a Great Pyr, a purebred Great Pyr, and if anybody knows about Great Pyrs, they love to bark at leaves falling, FedEx trucks, like they love barking. And this particular one, because we don't have a fence, we live on the side of a river, And so we don't have access to fencing all the way around. She likes to go bark at people's houses. So we have to keep her on a lead. You know, she has a lot of outdoor time with us. But so I wish I had done more of that research on that dog than I did on the chicks. But yes, chickens are lovely. They will eat anything. It's a marvel to me that we love chicken as much as we do, because chickens will eat literally anything, but they are very sweet when they're babies.
And they can be quite feisty as well, though, I believe, as adults.
Yeah, I haven't had anybody too challenging yet. We've had some lovely
Hmm.
roosters. I would say the goats are more challenging.
Sure. And finally, is anything you're working on at the moment, and where can people connect with you online?
So I'm in the middle of reviewing my Self-Compassion for Homeschool Moms course, and I think I'm complete in sharing that with the world. There's self-compassion strategies and awareness techniques to help moms deal with their big emotions in their lives, their homeschool lives, but their lives in general. And then I'm also writing a deschooling course. And you can find me online at www.capturingthecharmedlife.com.
Excellent. And I will obviously link that in the show notes as well. It was lovely to chat to you, Teresa. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And thank you for sharing about showing up authentically, confidently, and purposefully. I think it's going to be really useful for the listeners.
Thank you for having me. And hey, it was a pleasure to chat with everybody else too. So maybe I'll meet you on the other side.
I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Drop me a DM on Instagram or post on the Working Homeschool Mom support group over on Facebook. And let me know what resonated the most with you. It would also be great if you could rate, review, and subscribe, or share the podcast with a working homeschool mom who might need it. It's my mission to support as many working homeschool moms as possible. Until next time, take care. Hi there, working homeschool mom. This is Charlotte from Charlotte Jones 24/7 and My Little Homeschool. And on today's episode of the Strike a Balance podcast for working homeschool moms, I talked to Teresa Whitrick from Capturing the Charmed Life, and it was a delightful chat. We speak about so many interesting topics related to homeschooling.